Has leaked intelligence finally revealed the truth of why Russia's strategy seems so nonsensical? And what are Putin's designs on Luhansk and Donetsk Oblast? And also, why is his timeline so unrealistic? I'm going to be getting into all of it right now. It's February 3rd, 2023. This is your daily Ukraine update. Okay, so when we look at the control map, you can see that Russia has continued its policy of not making any sense in its offensive advancement. You can see that the couple of gains, first off, has been reportedly Russia's taking Mykolaiivka. You can see this is, again, like a small intersection near this other small intersection of Sakwa and Vanzetti. And as we've talked about, it seems like Russia's only option to advance is up through this corridor here, where if they try to do so, it's almost certainly going to be fairly punishing for their forces, given that to the east and west is nothing but no man's land. You can also see Russia has made a tiny advance near Bilohorivka, probably attempting to prevent this from becoming a giant salient. When we look slightly to the south, you can see just a minor adjustment near Blahodatne, a small advance to the outskirts of town here, again along kind of no man's land. And in the south, you have again Russian forces taking empty space. What I think is so interesting about this, when we look at the combat map, you guys can see that Russia continues to advance and launch attacks in a number of areas along this Bakhmut axis, from south of Kurdyumivka all the way to the north of near the Mykolaiivka. And what I find significant about this, well, here, I'll show you guys. According to the Institute for the Study of War, the Ukrainian intelligence has released that allegedly Russian President Putin ordered the Russian military to capture all of Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast by March of 2023. That's 60 days from now. And that Russian forces are redeploying additional combat elements and equipment to areas in eastern Ukraine. They've also concurrently disabled the mobile cell networks in Luhansk, likely to stop Russian troops from reporting their own location, and also to stop partisans from relaying information about Russian troop movements to Ukrainian authorities. And this is significant. Let's look at the map and we'll talk about what exactly this means. First off, it's not clear that Russia's forces maintain the level of mechanization necessary to seize the remaining entirety of Luhansk and the remaining entirety of Donetsk Oblasts in just 60 days. That's a tall order and would involve rolling back gains, basically the entire Kharkiv offensive. And it seems like Putin probably may view this as an off-ramp. He may simply say, hey, we've declared Luhansk and Donetsk Oblast as being entirely controlled by Russian forces. They'll probably declare them. He probably wants to declare them their own states or sort of provisional Russian provinces or whatever vague relationship they currently have to the Russian state. And I wouldn't even be shocked if Russia chose to withdraw its forces entirely from Kherson and Zaporizhzhia, right? Focusing on just building out defensive networks in these two regions here that they control, as well as Crimea, somewhere they've controlled for, again, the better part of a decade. And so that would be probably what Putin sees as his best off-ramp. The problem is that Russian troops, one, they lack mechanization. They were much more mechanized and better positioned to conduct maneuver warfare at the start of this conflict. And the two things you need for maneuver warfare, first off, are, again, armored mechanized forces that can cover large amounts of distance quickly. And you also need to have a command and control system that enables these forces to respond to situations on the ground. It requires empowered commanders at the company, battalion, and brigade level to look at the situation as it develops and make those calls. It's too slow to make an attack, relay the situation back to headquarters, allow the generals and their staffs to assess everything, provide you orders, then you execute those orders. That cycling process is too slow for mechanized warfare. It's adequate for what we're seeing Russia do now, which is considered positional warfare. Light infantry units advancing a few hundred meters in little bite-sized pieces. This slow going means that centralized command elements can control it. So Russia probably doesn't have the command staff to really conduct maneuver warfare. And if they are going to launch a major offensive, I suspect it'd be possible for them to throw enough bodies and material at a problem. Let's say they did it in, Kupiansk, that they could push Ukrainian forces back, but would incur massive casualties and would simply go too slowly. They would probably push them back, maybe even to the other side of the Oskil, but it would be at a tremendous price, and it would never achieve Putin's goals of, again, 60 days to basically reverse the better part of Ukrainian advances. And so I think this reflects just the fact that the Kremlin is not really connected to the realities on the ground. If you guys have been on the Patreon at all, which, the link is in the description, it's a good way to see all the videos that I can't show you here. One of them that recently came out that we're going to look at today was actually of Russian POWs. And what's notable about them is they look like they are starving. They look like, not like they haven't eaten in a couple of days. They look like they've been chronically undernourished. Sunken faces, deep set eyes, just really, really looking much worse for wear, which says that there is already, even at this slow, glacial rate of advance, there's still logistic problems that the Russian military hasn't really addressed. And so the belief that you can just sort of hand wave away these logistics problems and launch these sort of offensives is, again, it's possible, but they're not going to achieve the desired effect, and they're going to pay a tremendous price for it. And so I think that is what we're likely to see here. And that's why Ukraine seems not particularly nervous about this possibility of a major Russian advance, simply because I think they realize that it's not going to happen with frightening lightning speed. It's not going to happen unexpectedly. Their intelligence will probably let them know well ahead of time because, again, these are mostly infantry troops on foot. It's going to take them days to get from a staging area to the front lines. And Ukraine is more than willing to trade space for time, drawing those soldiers out and punishing them as they do it. Again, something that we've seen firsthand on the Patreon when we've looked at some of the combat videos of how Russian advances can quickly become shooting galleries for Ukrainian troops that stay far enough away that the Russians almost never even see them. Anyway, guys, that is all I had for you. Certainly, I hope you guys get some, this has given you some insight into what we think is going to be happening in the next 60 days or so, and we will certainly be seeing if it plays out. As always, thank you so much to my patrons of Patreon. YouTube doing its best to become a family-friendly platform, and unfortunately, even relatively mundane coverage of this conflict is oftentimes in conflict with YouTube's monetization. So having you guys around means the world to me. Anyway, thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next one.